says that the details that you will provide when you go and register yourself for Aadhaar will be kept secret, but that has not been the case in the past few months. We have seen the Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation, the Jharkhand Directorate of Social Security, even Swachh Bharat Mission, the websites of all these agencies, all these government agencies coming out and publishing all the details of those who have been holding Aadhaar cards on their website.
जो ये नंबर है, जिस इंटरनेट कंपनी पे मैं जाता हूँ और वहाँ से ये नंबर निकलवाता हूँ तो वो मेरे को आधार कार्ड निकाल के दे देगा, मगर मेरे को ये श्योरिटी नहीं है कि वो नंबर हो सकता है मेरा नोट करके रख ले, हो सकता है वो दूसरे आधार कार्ड निकाल ले मेरा।
आधार कार्ड का जो नंबर है वो आप किसी भी इंटरनेट पर अगर आप जाओगे खुलवाओगे आप अपना आधार कार्ड निकलवा सकते हो आराम से। इस तरीके से कोई भी किसी को हमारा नंबर याद है वो आराम से आपका आधार कार्ड निकलवा सकता है।
आधार कार्ड जो इशू किया है उसकी जो प्रोसीजर है वो प्रोसीजर बहुत इजी और किसी को भी आधार कार्ड मिलता है, तो इसलिए आधार कार्ड की जो विश्वासार्हता है वो विश्वासार्हता इतनी 100% नहीं है। आधार कार्ड इज नॉट कंपलसरी एज पर माय पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू।
डिजिटल जो है वो डिजिटल के लिए तो बहुत अच्छा है ना, जो नरेंद्र मोदी साहब बोल रहे हैं कि डिजिटल इंडिया कर रहे हैं तो बहुत अच्छा है आधार कार्ड।
ये जो प्रोग्राम लॉन्च किया है इससे टेक्निकल इंडिया बहुत साउंड होगा और यूनिवर्सल आइडेंटिफिकेशन मिलेगा हर एक आदमी को।
I have trust in Aadhaar card because I have trust on my thumb impression and my retina. Therefore, Aadhaar is very safe, and India has already.
So is Aadhaar really very safe? Over the last month or so, we've had several instances where government agencies have put up on their websites multiple details of Aadhaar cards linked to bank accounts. And I could go over these instances, 7 different instances. In Jharkhand, a government website, the Department of Women and Child and Social Security, who published details of lakhs of pensioners on their websites with their Aadhaar card numbers, with their Aadhaar numbers and their bank account numbers. In Kerala, a scholarship website leak published Aadhaar numbers on its website. We said there are hundreds of instances right now of Aadhaar cases that numbers that have been leaked online. The question is, how safe is your Aadhaar card, and why is the government not working faster to secure this database? Joining me on the show this evening, Vineet Goenka is the co-convener of the BJP IT cell. Ritesh Bhatia is a cybersecurity expert. Swapnil Kothari is a corporate lawyer and partner at S. Kothari and Company. Anupam Saraf is the former CIO of Pune City and Information Technology Advisor to Manohar Parrikar in Goa, who's filed a case against Aadhaar in the Supreme Court. Colonel Matthew Thomas is a petitioner also who joins us in Delhi. Sanjay Jha, national spokesperson of the Congress Party. I'm going to start here with Anupam Saraf. Anupam Saraf, another instance we saw just yesterday of another leak of Aadhaar information. This seems to be an epidemic right now within government departments.
Yes, absolutely. There's an epidemic of leaks on Aadhaar. And I think basically, let me start at the beginning. In August 2015, the Attorney General told the Supreme Court of India that no data, no personal Aadhaar-based data would be shared with any government agency or with any person. I think the epidemic that we see right now in terms of government Aadhaar data being leaked across different governments is an indicator that the Supreme Court has been misled in terms of what data has been shared with different agencies across the country. The second point I want to make is essentially the Supreme Court in its orders, both in August 2015 as well as October 2015, had categorically stated that no information would be shared, no Aadhaar information would be shared with anybody outside the 5 permitted uses of Aadhaar. The rampant use of Aadhaar across the country beyond these has been demonstrated actually by these leaks which have happened. At least half the leaks which have happened are outside the purview of what was permitted by the Supreme Court. The third point I want to make is that even while the Supreme Court was hearing this matter, what has happened is that the government, and under the advice of the Attorney General, has gone ahead and created an act. And this is trying to subvert or preempt the justice that is due to the country and all its citizens in terms of the dozen PILs which are pending all the way back from 2012 or 2013 in the Supreme Court. So therefore, I think it's extremely important to view that this is not just a question of leaks, but it's a question in terms of what kind of treatment we have given to the very foundation of our Constitution in terms of ensuring that we get justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity.
Swapnil Kothari, do you agree?
To a certain extent, yes, for the simple reason that, the government has absolutely failed in its duty to ensure the security of the information that is under the Aadhaar cards of the individuals who've procured them. Now, the idea is noble to issue a unique identification to everybody, and under Section 57 of the Aadhaar Act, you say that it's a primary identification document. But I think what is more important is, on top of the Aadhaar Act, there is a Constitution, and there is an Article 21, which is right to life, and under which life and liberty, under which right to privacy can be adumbrated as a right to as one of our fundamental rights. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, all of them talk about the right to privacy. So India, is being a democratic country, must have the right to privacy. And this is where it is infracted in many, many ways when the leaks take place.
Right. Let me bring in right now Vineet Goenka, who joins me in the studio. Vineet Goenka, I have very simple questions for you. I want to start by asking you this. Vineet, is the Aadhaar card compulsory? Do we all have to, must, mandatorily get Aadhaar numbers done?
Well, if you see the Supreme Court's definition, it says no for certain things. But if you see, it is necessary.
No, but is there any opinion higher than the Supreme Court in this country?
The Supreme Court says it is not necessary for particular things. It has been writing there. So that it is not compulsory for PDS. But rest, it has not mentioned anything else. At least I am not aware of this. There is anything else which is mentioned which cannot be used.
No, you're not answering my question. Yeah. Is the Aadhaar card mandatory? Do I, as a citizen of this country, have to mandatorily get an Aadhaar number? Is it compulsory?
It is not compulsory, but it is to be given when it has been asked for certain forms or certain requirements of the government.
So if I don't have an Aadhaar card, how will I file my tax returns from next year?
You should get it.
No, I don't want to get an Aadhaar card. I think that the government is being intrusive right now.
The
so I don't want to get an Aadhaar card. How will I file my tax returns?
Let me explain. The entire purpose of UIDA when it was formed in 2009 in the UPA regime was to have an unique identification so that we can track every human being.
Why?
The whole reason is to give the governance. If you want to percolate governance, how do you do that? If you don't know your people, how do you do the governance?
Let's roll it back a little bit. If I remember correctly, and also according to the Supreme Court, that the Aadhaar can be used only for PDS LPG distribution, for Employee Provident Fund, for the National Rural Employment Guarantee Program, and for the Jan Dhan Yojana. This was mentioned by this. It does not say anywhere should be used to file your tax returns. So why is the government expanding the scope of the Aadhaar?
The entire utilization of Aadhaar is to have a streamlined processes for transparency in economy.
Are you ready to do this? Is the government ready to do this?
It is a sincere effort of the government to bring in transparency. The entire people or the forces which are speaking against this is purely who do not want transparency in the system. See, primarily, I'll tell you. Let me take the debate to a higher level. Let me take the debate to the level.
I hate higher levels. Let's actually talk at the ground level. The ground level is the best level to talk at. The Jharkhand Directorate of Social Security published on its website 1.4 million pensioners' names, addresses, bank account details, and Aadhaar numbers. When the Unique Identification Authority of India, which actually manages Aadhaar, blamed the government, saying that the government has thousands of insecure computers that are maintained by rickety block-level government offices across the country. Government is not equipped with secure systems to handle the sensitive databases of using Aadhaar, which is why this happened. Now, I will ask you my question again. Are you ready for the kind of lofty kind of digitization that you are actually aiming for?
Well, I will correct your words. It is not a lofty. It is a very thoughtful process. When you implement such kind of huge processes, naturally there are things different. There are people, there are processes and technology. Let me understand. People can go wrong, the technology is not wrong. The processes are not wrong. And when the people are wrong, there are laws. There are IPCs. We can book them. If somebody has flawed up, there are acts of omission or act of commission, we can bring them to the justice.
So was this the case in Jharkhand of somebody making a mistake or rickety computers that are not able to actually manage?
If it is a failure of system, if it is a failure of technology, we can rectify the technology. If it is a failure of human being, there are procedural cases where we can go to the department or we can file a police case against them. It is not the failure of the entire thought of the intent of the government.
Okay, let me point out to you. Jharkhand government website, I told you, published 1.4 million. We also know the Kerala scholarship website published several other problems. The Telangana website, as lately, you'll put it up on our screen, has published 60,000 Aadhaar details. We've had several instances of this happening over and over again. So either one of the two things is the problem here. You've not managed to communicate to everyone in the entire government machinery how this very sensitive database is to be used, or the entire government machinery computer system is not ready to handle such a sensitive database. Which is it? Do we know which?
As I said, it is a problem of people process technology.
It can't be all of these things.
No, it is not there. Allow me to complete my sentence. That will make a sense. Primarily, when the technology is wrong, we can plug it up, because we can always rectify the technology whenever we want it. If there is a problem in the processes, it can be discussed. If there is a problem in the process of people, then you can train them, you can book them if they are doing it deliberately. If it is an act of sabotage, you can book them. If it is an act of error, we can always correct them.
Training can be important.
Let me complete my sentence. But the intent of enforcing Aadhaar is to bring governance to the last man, involve the last man. There is an inclusion policy. If we don't have everybody on the Aadhaar, how do you percolate your policies to the last man?
Okay, now here's my point. For as long as you cannot tell me, sitting in my studio, whether the problem is people, process, technology, or any other kind of sabotage, please do not make it mandatory for me to file my tax returns through your faulty, weak, flawed, and quite frankly, misdiagnosed Aadhaar system. Why are you making it mandatory if you are not able to here conclusively tell me what the problem is?
One, when the processes are made, they have been thought upon. One or two instances of this. What is the percentage of the incidences? Do not make this as to be a failure system. I personally believe the system is robust.
No, okay, I'll tell you where the intentions are right now. And I was very amused because today I actually did what most journalists do. I ran a search on Google saying Aadhaar government plans. This is what I found. May I please read it out to you? The government plans an Aadhaar-like 12-digit code for every cow in this country. 88 million cows and buffaloes will be given Aadhaar-like codes. An unparalleled system of tagging is currently going to be taking place in our country. 1 lakh engineers have been pushed into work to go out and tag 88 million cows and buffaloes. 150 crore rupees will be used to actually procure these very scientific tags, which will not hurt the animal and which cannot be taken off by anybody who wants to take off this tag from the animal's ear. And it will actually make sure that every cow and every offspring of that cow is tracked by the government of India, and nobody can move a cow in this country without the government of India knowing about it. I think that is a very lofty ideal. I would love it if we are able to achieve this. I would first like you, Vineet Goenka, and the government that you represent to finish the work you started on Aadhaar and actually make it secure before you ask me to file my IT returns using the Aadhaar card. Then when we are done actually making a system that is not flawed, that is not weak, that can actually be secure, then let's go out and start tagging cows. I think our priorities are completely wrong in this country right now.
One, I am not aware of this system because I have not read that. Okay.
Please, it was in this morning's paper. You should read the papers.
So I'll do one thing. So I don't have to read everything
on the internet.
Of course. Let me specify. So I would not like to claim myself as to be a champion of everything on the earth, because if I don't know it, I can frankly say that I don't know it. Number two, governments can start initiatives parallel to another initiative because you don't have a single person doing it. You have people who are different people who do it. So if there is a process which is to be put in, we'll do that.
Governments would finish initiatives
and B, by just
also
raising our voice in the studio, you cannot deny justice to the last man. We have to do an inclusion. We'll have to take the last man inside. If you want to last man to take it, the entire problem is there is a lobby who does not want the subsidies to be rationalized. There is a lobby who does not want the last man to be benefited. So they're trying to care
May I first say that I never raised my voice in my studio, and that was not a raised voice. There are several other studios in this country with raised voices. I'm sure you're familiar with them. This is not one of them. Ritesh Bhatia, the government very ambitiously began the Aadhaar project. Do you believe the government has done justice to the Aadhaar project before it has asked us to file our tax returns on it? And shouldn't the government have done justice to the Aadhaar project before it started tagging cows?
So Faye, let me tell you one thing. When Aadhaar, basically the foundation in English, so Aadhaar is a foundation. When it was built, okay, it was rock solid. And I would say it's still rock solid. But what happened was it was built for a particular thing. So like Aadhaar was meant for authentication and not identification. Now what happened is, over a period of years, those cracks we started either discovering or they started happening. But what is happening now, we are just loading up that foundation with more and more and more load, or like we are adding more and more stories without fixing up the base. So that is one thing. So first, let's fix up all the cracks. Let's make the foundation stronger, bigger, so that it can handle more load. And I don't see any reason that the government or anybody should like hurry to integrate all the services with Aadhaar.
Sanjay Jha?
Faye, first and foremost, one thing is evident, that in our country, the cows were going to be much more safer than the human beings. I mean, that is established beyond doubt. And I'm glad you raised the point. But, let me come down to the seminal issues on Aadhaar. I think somebody on your panel earlier mentioned that the Aadhaar's main objective was to identify people and improve governance. It's wrong. The basic purpose was to authenticate and make sure that certain welfare subsidies were distributed in a manner that was more transparent, which would keep the middlemen out and would to that extent result in the direct benefits transfer becoming the mode for the future delivery of services to the common man. Now, it's interesting how this government has actually now twisted the entire thing on its head. This is the same government which actually called the Aadhaar as draconian. They called it that we are ashamed, and they said it is absolutely a terrible step going forward. Now, they're entitled to their U-turns. I don't want to comment on it. But look at the critical things that are worrying. The Supreme Court just a few days ago, Faye, actually reiterated this earlier point, that why was the government in such a hurry when the Supreme Court is hearing the issue, and there are several petitions, and more importantly, when the Supreme Court has already categorically, explicitly stated that Aadhaar cannot be mandatory, it has to be optional. Number one. Number two is the government actually got Aadhaar Act passed as a money bill, which it is not, because there are multiple aspects related to security, data protection, etc., which are fundamental rights of individuals, as some of your panel members have very correctly stated. And these needed to be debated with other political parties in the Rajya Sabha. But this government's absolutely extraordinary hurry to pass the act, and then, and this is the fascinating part, is to link what was earlier the objective, which was to link welfare distribution. They are now adding non-welfare issues into the entire Aadhaar facet, which is income tax returns. Tomorrow you want to buy an airline ticket. I mean, they are basically going to get data on each and every individual.
But that's a very good
to
point.
the extent that tomorrow all of us as individuals, every detail of our lives will be known to the government.
My question to you is very simple. The system was created to make sure that people who are getting government subsidy actually get it straight into their bank accounts, which is a fantastic idea. It increases the efficiency, it blocks the leaks, it actually makes sure that the money reaches the ones who need it the most.
Correct.
Why are we now using it for surveillance?
So this is, let me correct the word, that is not surveillance, neither what my friend Sanjay Jha said.
So what is the word?
Say, if you don't know what is a return, how do you determine that the person comes under BPL? How does these benefits go? The benefits go on the economical condition of a person.
Are you saying that you need me to file my returns so you can tell whether or not I'm below the poverty line? I'll tell you how many people are below the poverty line. India has the largest number of citizens in the world below the poverty line. A third of our population goes to bed hungry every night because they live below the poverty line. Now, if you need me to file my tax returns and you want to track my tax returns in order to be able to tell which of your citizens are below the poverty line, sir, I think we're missing something very crucial here, and that might be just governance.
So can I speak?
Please go ahead.
Yeah. How do you know there are 1/3 people? You cannot come out with this number like this, right? There has to be data and additional data. So I have this data coming from various sources. One of the sources is income tax return.
May I tell you how I know?
If somebody has an income tax return filed,
may I tell you how I know 1/3?
I'll not be able to.
This is the UN number of the international poverty line,
coming from the
listing the number of people who fall below.
Do we distribute our benefits to the people? See, I'll tell you, the entire UP regime and the party represented by Sanjay distributed a lot of benefits, lot of benefits to incorrect people.
So you're righting the wrongs of the past.
Okay, so what do? You will have to identify who's getting this benefit. You cannot allow middlemen to take it away. It's an entirely transparency issue. We are trying to bring transparency.
So why do I have to
system
find, why do I have to add my Aadhaar number to my tax?
Who's taking the benefits? If somebody has to be identified, naturally, how do you identify? There are various means of identifying. One of the ways is to identify him through Aadhaar.
So you identify him through Aadhaar.
See,
why do you need to identify me?
I don't understand why Congress or anybody else has a problem in identifying the right beneficiary.
No, I don't have a problem with you identifying the right. So if I want the subsidy, allow me to come to the government and offer up all of my details saying I want a subsidy from you. Please give me, LPG at a subsidized rate. Please give me food at a subsidized rate. Please give me fertilizer at a subsidized rate. I want none of those things from you. I pay full price for all of my services. I do not want you to bring in your surveillance. So I will not get an Aadhaar card. Now you cannot prevent me from filing my taxes because that is illegal to not file your taxes. You cannot insist that I have to put my Aadhaar card on my taxes. How is that? How can you insist that I need an Aadhaar card to file taxes?
Okay. So you'll have to allow me to complete the sentence.
Okay.
Else what will happen is I will try to answer
Can I give a
without giving
rejoinder to the gentleman there?
Yeah. So primarily, how do you identify a person who needs a benefit? There are various means. And who is a person who should not be given benefit? One of the ways to identify by the income tax. If a person is filing income tax which is clear and transparent, why does he fear about it? If there is a technological snag which can be plugged in, we can always plug in the technological snags. Now, as far as Sanjay's understanding about the entire system is, let me remind him, it was 2009 where Aadhaar started. It's their own wounds which we are trying to clean. It's not our own wounds. We are trying to clean their wounds. They have given these wounds to the public. That's why they were rejected.
Okay.
And why they were not able to discuss because they don't have number of people.
Please focus. All right. So let me just point out.
So it's not my problem. It's his problem.
Your government.
And I don't understand why you're always against transparency and accountability. You're trying to bring in transparency and accountability.
I'm just asking you questions of the government of the day. Let's not dredge up the past right now. Swapnil Kothari, I still have a problem with this. Now, here we've just had Mr. Vineet Goenka say we have to identify the person who needs a subsidy. You need to identify the person who wants the subsidy. You don't need to survey all of us. You don't need to bring us all under your surveillance to decide who needs and who doesn't need subsidy. You need the person who wants the subsidy to come to you. The rest of us, please, leave us out of it. Swapnil Kothari.
Yes, my basic objection to Mr. Goenka's, observations is that first and foremost, the Aadhaar card, the Aadhaar Act started as an aspect for identification / authentication. To extend it to tax returns and PAN things, and let me first go to the full aspect of Aadhaar Act. It's called Aadhaar Act bracket targeted benefits of subsidies, etc., from the Consolidated Fund of India. Now, the whole act was enacted for the purpose of passing on the subsidies more efficiently, not to convert a democratic country into a police state where people are kept under under some sort of a surveillance, as the correct word that you used. Now, that is one aspect. I strongly object to the fact that you are trying to link it to the income tax returns or PAN cards.
But Swapnil is asking you, why are you afraid? If you're not doing anything wrong, you should be okay with filing your taxes.
I will not be afraid. Yeah, I will not be afraid, Mr. Goenka. Once I do not ever read for the next 5 years about a single leak. Once my information is protected, once there is a data protection policy and my right to privacy as enshrined in the Constitution is, is granted to me in very, very strongly and very, very safely, then I do not have a problem with this. And even thereafter, I would still want that the Aadhaar card should be a matter of choice, not a matter of compulsion. Nowhere in the Act does it say and that it is mandatory for a person to have the Aadhaar card. A second aspect which I wanted to point out in this is that, funnily, in the Aadhaar Act, only the UIDAI can file an FIR if the information is leaked. And so basically, a person whose information is leaked, he cannot do anything. He has got no remedy in law. Perhaps he'll have to use the Constitution and go under Article 32 and ask the Supreme Court to, interpret this. And it is my humble request to the Supreme Court to establish a quietus on this right to privacy, whether it's a fundamental right or not. It's subject to various interpretations. There are some decisions which say that it is not, but some decisions which say that it is. So once it establishes a quietus, then I'm not worried about that, because then me, as a person whose information is leaked, has a recourse to the law. So I would expect that the government first give me that right, then go ahead with this, and that too after protecting my details.
You know, okay, so I want to tell Vineet Goenka, unfortunately, Mr. Goenka, I'm not a IT expert. I actually don't understand IT. It scares me. So if you're asking me why I'm scared, I'll tell you why I'm scared before I go to Colonel Matthew Thomas, who's a petitioner as well. I understand now, given the things that the government is linking to the Aadhaar number, that with my Aadhaar number are my bank details, which means how much money I make and where I spend that money. Every swipe of my card is recorded. Is also you are going to link my taxes, which means that every investment that I make, every return that I have received from that investment will be linked to my Aadhaar card. How many gas cylinders my family used this year, my phone details, how many phone calls I made, to whom I made those phone calls, what text messages I sent out, and everything that was used on the internet that is on my phone will then be available. My internet surfing records, my travel, my airlines, my school admissions of our children can be tracked by the government. Our addresses can be tracked by the government. This sort of excessive information available in the hands of the government makes me nervous. Now, if that makes me nervous as a citizen, I believe I should have the option to simply opt out and say, no, boss, I don't want it. I'm not getting an Aadhaar card. You can't force me to get an Aadhaar card. Let me just bring in Colonel Matthew Thomas, who will also, I'm sure, have an opinion on this, and then you can respond to both of us. Colonel Matthew Thomas, go ahead.
Thank you and good evening. I feel like taking part in an Alice in Wonderland Mad Hatter party. Most people are ignorant of what this is about, IT, biometrics and so on. Now there has been data breach. I find it sad and funny at the same time. I would request your camera to focus on a document which I have, which is a contract between UIDI and a foreign private company. It says, if you can focus, can you focus this on that? No, he's not able to focus, so I'll have to read it.
Right.
It is, it is clause 3.1 of Annexure B of the contract between UIDI and the L1 Identity Solutions Operating Company. So there are identical contracts between UIDI and two other foreign companies. Now let me read this. It says, in the course of the agreement, the biometric solution provider may collect, use, transfer, store, otherwise process information that pertains to specific individuals and can be linked to them, personal data. Now, the entire data of the country linked to every database is being given to these private companies, foreign private companies. So where is the question of data breach? We are just handing it over. The second thing is the very method of collection of this data. There have been hundreds of riffraff companies, tea estates, education societies, stockbrokers, money lenders, printing presses. Many of them have fallen by the wayside. What about the data which they collected? It's all over the place. When the UK government scrapped the National ID Card Act in 2009, only 15,000 people's data had been collected. And to destroy that data,
right. Colonel Matthew Thomas, I'm just going to bring you back to the debate that we're having here right now, which is that the system is obviously unsafe and faulty. What is the deepest concern right now from your point of view?
No, not unsafe. No. My point of view is this whole thing is ridiculous because people believe that biometrics gives a unique identity. That's the foundation. That's the Aadhaar of Aadhaar. Now, biometrics is inherently fallible. There is proof of that. What I'm holding up is not a book. It's a research report of 4 national academies of the United States.
Okay,
the National Academy of Sciences.
All right. So I still have unfortunately, Colonel Matthew Thomas, I don't understand what your problem is with the Aadhaar. If you say that it is,
please.
If you say that the biometrics is safe, are you saying basically that the third-party vendors who are handling the data are not able to handle it?
Please, madam, please.
Please go ahead. So please make your point very quickly. We have limited time on the show. Please make your point quickly.
Listen to me carefully.
Make your point quickly.
I know you have limited time on the show, but what I am trying to say is so significant. 2 points. One, under the contract, entire data is being handed over to foreign private companies, which means breaches here are ridiculous. The second point which I am making is a research report, and this I have filed in the Supreme Court. The second point is biometrics is inherently fallible. The counter affidavit of UIDI to my writ petition says 80 million people have been declared as duplicates.
I just want to bring in some callers right now. We have some viewers on the phone line. Ram Prasad, 1 second. Ram Prasad is on the phone line from Chennai. Ram Prasad, go ahead. We can hear you.
Yeah, my question is only one thing. Basically, in Tamil Nadu, there is no concept of surname. And in income tax, you have a surname which basically, you know, in Tamil Nadu, we call, for example, Chidambaram Palanichami.
Yes.
That is P. Chidambaram. It is called as P. Chidambaram or Chidambaram P, whichever the way.
Yes.
Now, people like me, I'm not in a position to write Palanichami, because in the Aadhaar, it is written as, my name is Ramaprasad K. K stands for, that is my father's first letter.
Yes. Yes.
The thing is, in income tax, it is written as Ramaprasad Krishnamurthy. That is the name. So the thing is, I'm not, in the past so many days, I'm trying to link my Aadhaar with income tax website. But I'm unable to do, because I wrote a message to the PM, and from the office it came as that you please change either one of the thing. So when I took my Aadhaar when I was in Gujarat, and now when I have to change my Aadhaar, it is coming as transliteration to error, transliteration error. I don't know how to rewrite Gujarati. But the problem is now if I am unable to attach my Aadhaar with income tax, so how can I file my return?
So yeah, I understand what you're saying. Basically, when you want to and when you force us to make these links, and given the fact that the systems are so complicated, it's obvious that the system is not ready. Vineet Goenka, respond to that caller. And there will be a lot of people I know from South India who will be having similar problems. Married women will be having those problems. Anyone who's changed their name will not be able to reconcile their PAN cards with their Aadhaar cards. They will not be able to file taxes. How can you insist that someone who's paying taxes and doing something completely legal and filing their taxes needs to now link it with their Aadhaar card, officially then making it compulsory when your system is obviously flawed?
See, if my name is Vineet Goenka, I'll pronounce it like that, I write it like that. In some reason, if it has been misspelt or I've written it wrong, there are forms of rectification. He can just fill up the form of rectification. That was been advised. He has to just pick up a form and fill it up. So, hey, this system, I want to change my name, because this was the fault of that. There's nothing big about this. It's a simple administrative form which has to be filled up and to be done by him. It's a simple form. This happens everywhere. If you take out book a ticket, you fill up your name one way, it will be printed in that same form. Now, if it isn't somebody...
But Mr. Goenka, sorry to interrupt you, but I think that still does not address the concern of data breach.
She wanted me to
no, I understood that point.
I have answered the query of the caller. Now let me answer the data breach. It's a supplementary question, right? Sure. So if I have answered and satisfied the caller, then you have to just fill up the form, because it's an error from your side. You have to decide whether you will be called as P. Chidambaram or you will full form of the P. So once you decide that, you do it with every identification, every forms. When you go for a driving license, your ration card, your election form, you cannot go on changing it and then say that, hey, I will now try foul. So you'll have to decide what is your name. Once for all, you file that name, and if it is an error there, either by your side or by the authorities, rectify it by filling up a form. It happens. Now to answer his question of data breach. What is the reason of data breach? If the data breach is done by technology, yes. Then what we'll do is we'll try to put in the systems which will correct the technology. If the data breach is by omission of somebody, then there will be system rectification, there will be training, there will be enforcements. Okay, if the data breach is by act of commission, where somebody does it with action, then there are CRPCs which can be followed, he can be arrested, there can be an action over him. So we'll have to identify that, and the data breach can be fixed up. Now this is a small petty example and a problem.
No. What is the small petty problem? 1.4 million details being leaked by the Jharkhand website is a small petty problem?
No. It's just a problem. The problems it's just a problem. Let me complete. It's just a problem.
Please,
Let me make the point.
I disagree that it's okay. Let me point out.
Let me understand why should I believe that it is a small problem. It's not a big problem.
The Aadhaar Act of 2016 says no Aadhaar number, core biometric information collected or created under this act in respect of the Aadhaar number holder shall be published, displayed or posted publicly except for purposes may be specified as by regulations. The punishment is imprisonment of up to 3 years and a fine of up to 1 lakh rupees. Now, should the Jharkhand Directorate of Social Security now be sent to prison for publishing on its website? Let me point out to our viewers, it is still available on the website. If you go to the website right now, 1.4 million pensioners' names, addresses, bank account details and their Aadhaar number. How is this a small problem? Why are you underplaying the issue?
See, if there is an act which somebody disagrees and we feel that there is a breach, there is a simple procedure. We'll have to file a complaint about it.
Ritesh,
there will be investigation, and once the investigation done is there, we go to the court. And if the person has done the problem,
no, we don't have time. We don't have time for you to. And then, okay, if you're going to do that, then very simply, don't insist that all of us get on this system until you do all of these things.
Just
figure out what the problem is, investigate the problem, then file the FIR, then go to court.
Let me assume that for a minute. I'm not saying they have done it. For a minute, if I assume that somebody has done this breach, for a minute, do you deny the entire universe? The minute of that, do I deny the lady?
Yes.
Just, I'll tell you, few people sitting in an air-conditioned place trying to say that their data is privy. How about the girl who stays in a tribal area, who's waiting for the benefits to come, which has not come to them for last 6 decades? How about a person who wants the pensions to his places, which has been traveled?
How do you do it?
You do it through the DBT. You'll have to enforce that.
Don't distract. Don't distract. If you have a water balloon and you've got a hole in that water balloon no longer works. Okay, you have a hole in your system. Let us acknowledge the fact that there is a hole.
The system was built in 2009. We have been building it up, rectifying it.
Faulty. It is faulty. Ritesh Bhatt.
You're going to have the maximum problem because you use an apostrophe in your surname.
Just one minute before Mr. Bhatt comes in, can I say a few words?
Basically, you will have to go to each and every place and get your apostrophe removed. So D'Souza will have to become D-E-S-O-U-Z-A.
But that's not my name. Why should I have it removed?
No. Exactly.
Also, similarly, the Aadhaar database does not recognize people who don't have surnames and only have initials.
Exactly.
FYI. So, which means that half of us in this country don't qualify for the Aadhaar database.
Don't qualify. Secondly, as Mr. Thomas was mentioning that it is being outsourced and all, I completely agree with him. There's a rampant outsourcing of getting the details, and you will be surprised to know 34,000 agencies have been blacklisted in the past 7 years. Which means like every year, 1 out of 3 agencies are getting blacklisted. When it comes to the public distribution system, for which this is meant to be, do you know, like in Andhra Pradesh as well as in Kerala, the systems fail to recognize their fingerprints. So now what happens? The people are standing in the queue, they are doing their fingerprinting, and now it says, no, we don't recognize it. What happens to the lady who's just fallen sick and she has to send her son to fetch it, and it says, no, we need your mother's fingerprint, so she has to come over here.
No, but the point is, let's come back to what we're talking about. Ritesh Bhatia, there are leaks in the system,
so
and my point is that the system
bring your attention to one place. I'll just try to bring your attention. It is 7 years and 34,000, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
I hope Sanjay is listening to this.
I think you should collectively take blame, and I do not want you to spend any more time on my show pointing fingers at each other, because when the Congress-run UPA was running the Aadhaar system, your party repeatedly called it a complete waste of time and energy and money and said it would be scrapped as soon as you came into power. When you came into power, you completely changed your mind and decided this was the best thing since sliced bread and everybody should have a slice, and now they are talking about how you're completely misusing it. I think both of you sitting here on this show today should collectively take responsibility for the fact that we have a completely flawed system, and nobody is accepting now, except that we have a flawed system, except that you will fix the problem before you make it compulsory for anybody else. Swapnil Kothari.
So what we are trying to do is we're trying to put the things in place.
Mr. Goenka, let me come out with one or two suggestions to you. Apart from partitioning the blame to the opposite party, I think the Aadhaar Act... just a minute, Mr. Jha, let me complete my point. Apart from partitioning, do not partition that blame to Mr. Jha of Congress Party. I think the Aadhaar Act was enacted during your regime. It has come into force on 12th September 2016. In the past 6 months, there have been ample leaks to justify this kind of a debate that we are having today.
Exactly.
My suggestion to you is, can I request your government, or can you recommend to your government that strengthen this act first, ensure that this authority under this act is also penalized if there is a leak, if the leak is rather attributable to him or her. Then I would rather be safe, about protecting my own details, because here the authority is absolutely going to put its hands up. And where do I go? Under which act do I go? Trying to, assail this authority and say that, look, you did your job badly or you messed it up. So this is a suggestion from me that please ensure first strengthen this act, and then before you ID the cows, ensure this, because I think IDing the cows is just to prevent the cow slaughter. So let's not get into the politics of it, but I think this is something which merits a serious consideration, because my details being leaked and now being tied up with the income tax people, as far as the income tax authorities or the PAN card thing is concerned, the points made by Mr. Thomas and Mr. Bhatia are technical, that remove the apostrophe, etc. and all that. I'm not worried about that. That can take care of itself. But at the same time, what is going to happen after that? Are my details going to be there to everybody, for everybody to look at? That is something which I'm concerned. That's procedural aspect which you're pointing out. I'm concerned with the substantive aspect.
I want to bring in Anubhav Saraf here. Anubhav, if you can explain to us, and I'll also ask Ritesh to do the same thing. There is a lot of concern about this data being leaked. I have a very simple question for you. Let's assume I'm getting a phone connection and I go to the phone company and the phone company asks for my Aadhaar details, as they're doing right now. That information is already available with the phone company. Why should I be concerned if the information is being leaked? What is the risk for me as an individual if that information is leaked?
Well, firstly, as I said, that since the Aadhaar number is being linked to practically every database in this country, once I have an Aadhaar number of a person, I have access to practically every database across the country. It becomes the one point of actually civil death of a person. It's important to ensure that this number is never stored, if at all the Aadhaar number is used. And in fact, the Aadhaar Act itself prohibits the storage of this number. It only allows for the storage of the eKYC package which is sent out by the CIDR. So it is extremely strange that all these leaks have had a storage of all Aadhaar numbers of people who have been seeded. The second thing I want to point out is that this seeding is not permitted under the Aadhaar Act. It only allows for authentication, and authentication is defined very clearly in the Aadhaar Act. So the very fact that databases have been seeded with the Aadhaar number shows that there's already a rampant violation. The UIDAI doesn't understand what act it has created. It doesn't understand the very fact that an operation which is not permitted is being used by millions of data records across the country, and that data is being stored and retained against the Aadhaar Act. So I think I am greatly concerned, because this becomes a single point of manipulation of all databases across the country to siphon off subsidies from the Consolidated Fund of India, to hack into bank accounts or create money laundering by creating fake PAN cards through fake Aadhaar cards. Because Aadhaar database itself is full of ghosts, it's full of duplicates, it has never been verified and audited. So to actually use such a database in order to clean up PAN cards is a very ridiculous idea. In fact, it is an idea which will propagate money laundering. It will actually ensure that instead of making sure that we have a clean database of taxpayers, it's going to create a database of people who are evading tax and laundering black money.
Yes, and I want to point out that we've had cases in the past where people have been arrested for using Aadhaar to create fraud bank accounts, to create fraud identities. They would create one bank, use thumb impression of a genuine customer, and then open several other bank accounts with that same Aadhaar detail. The police have seized, from what I understand, 346 Reliance Jio SIM cards, including 4 pre-activated SIM cards, 4 thumb impression machines. This has happened, in various parts of the country. People have been using this biometric data to actually
terrorists have
fraud.
opened bank accounts with Aadhaar. Terrorists have opened bank accounts and laundered money. In fact, in Assam, they just caught a terrorist. They actually killed a terrorist who was found with Aadhaar cards and who had used these Aadhaar to open bank accounts.
Ritesh Bhatia, we know that there was someone who created an Aadhaar card for a dog who doesn't have a fingerprint.
Yes, we discussed that last time, for a dog, for a tree, for a Hanuman. So we had all that, but to answer your question, when you were asking, what could be the implications on a common man,
yes,
it's vast. Let me tell you that. As far as, let me first put up the first point in terms of security. Now, whatever this is happening, what you're calling as leakages, I would call them as carelessness. There is no training given to all these government departments or agencies. They are not realizing that they cannot just publicly post this. So on an immediate basis, a very, very solid training has to be provided to all these people and to make them aware that you cannot do that. Secondly, now when it comes to what happens now if I have all this data, now you just look at it. Data is the new oil. It is a gold mine. And we are, you know, two super giants of the internet have already profiled us a lot. Now what is happening is, now we are also going to be stalked. So there is profiling and now there is surveillance. So know your customer and now you have know your citizen.
I want to bring in Sanjay Jha. I know he wanted to respond for a while. Sanjay Jha, will both parties collectively take responsibility for this faulty system?
Not at all. In fact, Faye, I disagree with you very strongly on that statement. That's precisely why I wanted to come in a little earlier. The Congress-led UPA created the Aadhaar card. Why is it that a party that called it earlier a fraud, and I'm quoting Yashwant Sinha, who by the way was part of the Parliamentary Standing Committee, they called it a fraud. They said India should be ashamed of itself if it implements Aadhaar for, you know, even the noble purposes that we had in mind. Why has this government done a U-turn is the question that everybody needs to ask the gentleman from the BJP. I mean, what is the purpose here? The purpose here was that we had to target the distribution of welfare services to the people who were to be the ultimate beneficiary. What should worry all of us today is that, you know, you have data out there in public. I think that is a perfect case for a class action suit against the government. Frankly, everyone can sue the government on that for severe financial damages. I mean, if my privacy is out there in the public domain, you have your right to actually sue the government. But let's talk about it some other time. The bigger point is that under the way the BJP wants to take it forward, and I'm very impressed that Mr. Goenka is praising the Aadhaar. Thank you very much for applauding the Congress party, my dear friend. But the truth is, they want to know everything about every citizen's financial transaction. They will know where you travel. They will tomorrow ask you to extend the Aadhaar for booking a railway ticket, for which restaurant do you go, for every credit card transaction.
What you're saying fundamentally is that this is surveillance. Vinit Goenka, won't this kind of surveillance, right, won't this kind of surveillance, one second, allow you to actually profile each of us, profile the neighborhoods we live in, our religions, our food habits, where we go, what we do? When you go into elections, you will be able to tell actual demographic profiles to a point that will make your election campaigns so powerful and so efficient that no government should have access to this kind of data. Is that not true, Vinit Goenka?
So, let me answer one by one. There are enough questions for me. Number one, is somebody profiling you? Answer is no. You have been, say, when you file
will you have the ability to profile me?
Let me answer.
Okay.
If I answer, then only you will come to know what is there in my mind, right? So when you file income tax, if you understand income tax, the balance sheet contains a profit and loss account or a statement of expenses. So when you are filing that, you are already saying that how many gas cylinders you have bought. If you have really spent the money on the fees or you have spent the money in restaurant, that has been declared by you already, and the tax authority by its own nature can ask you to provide a voucher of that. If you don't know about this, then probably you will have to go and understand what is income tax law. It is not about Aadhaar or it is nothing about...
But are those details available to anybody in the government who chooses to look at my tax returns?
An income tax officer, competent income tax officer can ask you to bring this irrespective of Aadhaar.
No, can people in the...
Let me, see, I'll tell you, if I don't understand income tax law, it will ask you, if the income tax officer is not convinced on the expenses, he can ask you to bring the vouchers. He can ask you how much money you have paid for a parking charges. So that, let's be clear about it. It's not an infringement. Number two...
Okay. May I rebut the point you made? May I rebut the point you made? Yes, I understand the tax laws very well. I'm a certified financial planner. Thank you very much, Mr. Goenka. Let me tell you this. The Income Tax Office has the ability to look into my tax records and ask me for clarifications, right? Does any random department in the government have the ability to look into my tax
records? Why do you feel so? Why do you feel so?
Because I don't trust. I have trust issues.
It is interested parties who are trying to create
this. Who are these interested
because
parties?
Those people who do not want. Those are the people who do not want the last man of this country to get benefit of this scheme.
My tax returns
it has
are
nothing
not
to do with the tax
open
returns.
to everybody in the government. If you are telling me that my tax returns are open to anybody in the government, then we already have a problem. We already have a problem. I have a right to privacy. I have a right to privacy. I have a right to privacy. If I have filed something wrong in my tax returns, it is allowed that the income tax department, this has nothing to do with sabotage, please.
Political party.
Please, this has nothing to do with sabotage.
If there is a person who does this,
political
if it's not
authorized,
authorized, see a joint secretary level guy under authorization can only access the data.
And they should remain
anonymous. There is a procedure been mentioned. If somebody does it without the procedure, he is doing a breach. For a breach, there is a punishment. Why do you worry about it? See, there is a punishment for a breach.
Where is the punishment? Where is the punishment for the 7 breaches that have happened right now? Are you going to tell me that you have actually managed to bring to the book?
UID
you managed to bring to the book.
No, don't give against a big bank because they were holding data. Who says they are not?
Have you managed?
I'll bring your attention to 15th of February. They have filed case against the bank.
I'll tell you this. There was a case when the Union Minister of India, Venkaiah Naidu, was seen handing over an oversized replica of an Aadhaar card to a citizen, which is in fact a breach of security because the details on that Aadhaar were actually visible to the press. MS Dhoni's details were also posted.
When this kind of seminars happen, when this kind of promotional activities happen, and if this has been given to them, is the minister supposed to know that what is the card being given? Okay.
Everybody in the government is supposed to know what the rules are. You are telling me that you are going to create this all-powerful, all-knowing database when your ministers themselves will not understand, or are you asking me should they know whether or not this database is sensitive, whether this information is sensitive? Everybody in the government down to the last person needs to know. How can you create this database and create something? How can you create something so powerful and then not take responsibility? Swapnil Kothari.
So who denies that? See, let me before Swapnil comes in, I was trying to point out that the police case has been filed on the bank. It's a very reasonably big bank. So if there is a breach, we can always go through the procedures.
That's not good enough.
Mr. Goenka, that is against the bank. I'm talking when there is a government breach by government people. The Aadhaar Act does not have any provision for catching the government authority. That is one. The second point that I would simply want to ask you a very simple question, a basic question. The Supreme Court has given an order that do not make it mandatory. It applies to the LPG and the PDS schemes and all the other schemes that Faye just mentioned a couple of minutes before. Why do you want to hurry it up to bring PAN cards and IT returns? That is the question that the Supreme Court is going to ask you tomorrow when it decides upon that PIL. I do not understand this haste, this torrid haste. I am sure that there is some sort of a reason behind it, and according to me, I can boil it down to only one word which Faye pointed out and rightly pointed out is surveillance.
I'll tell you, the only word which is there, the only intention, I'll answer this. The only intention is Antoday, where the last man, there's an inclusion policy. We would like to bring everybody in this country.
Compulsorily without their choice.
No. How do you actually extend the benefits? You want them to be left out?
Sir, just because you're trying to follow the United States, but it's got a tremendous political maturity. This country does not have that maturity.
No. I have a debate over here. My country has been a very matured country. In the last 67 years, we've never had a single bullet been filed.
You've had 7 breaches. Will you stop talking about the last 60 years and talk about the fact that I just told you you have 7? You've had 7 breaches.
They will be booked if there is a breaches. What's wrong in breaches? If there are breaches, we will actually book them.
Nobody. You've booked no one. You have booked nobody. You've taken no action, and you cannot. You cannot.
Why can't we book somebody if there's a breach?
You have not. I'm not saying you cannot. I said you have not. If you were serious about it, you would have booked somebody, but the government has taken zero action.
Not serious,
when Sakshi Dhoni said that she objected to her husband's details being leaked on the internet, what action have you taken? Zero action you've taken. Instead, what happened?
If the person wants to file a case, they can always file the case.
They cannot file the case. It is the UADI that has to file the case. If what happened in return, a bunch of trolls trolled Sakshi Dhoni and called her the worst possible things that you can call a woman, told her that she has no privacy, that they are not coming into her bedroom, that who is she, where is she from, why does she claim that she needs privacy, and they said the worst things about her. Was there any action taken against the people who said those things? Nothing. You've done nothing. I'm just saying, run your faulty database. There's nothing wrong with that. It is perfectly within the law that you run a faulty database. You cannot make it compulsory for all of us to get on that database until you get your act together. Thankfully, the Supreme Court of India has an eye on it. But I think you know what is fantastic? I think you know what is fantastic, Mr. Goenka, that cows do not have surnames. They do not have apostrophes in their names. They do not have initials. It will be very easy for you to actually create 12-digit databases for the cows in this country. And I don't think that they have a right to privacy either. They will be very happy to get on board. In the meantime, do not make it mandatory for us until you have the ability to fix the system. Or, I give you a better suggestion. Stop databasing cows and actually do this job, which seems to be even more and even more dangerous.
And
that's the end of the show. We have to wrap up the show right now.
And
that was the urban debate.
Suggestions, but at the same time, government takes very serious note of people who do leakages. Let me assure your audiences,
Mr. Goenka, the show is done. You've made this statement several times. Unfortunately, we've not seen any real action from the government. Come back with some real action taken on these people who have leaked the databases, and then we will talk. Otherwise, up till then, it is just lip service. Otherwise, up till then, we are still nervous about giving you any of our details. Thanks for watching.